Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Chad. How was your week this week, Chad?
Stressful, but good.
It's always stressful. That means you got a lot on your plate.
Yes.
It means you're busy. You know,
Yes.
You know what they say. They say idle hands are the devil's playground.
Sure.
It's the truth.
Sure.
If you're busy doing and working and making a difference, then you ain't got time to be that negative weight dragging everybody else down.
Is what it is, man.
Yeah.
It's been busy because we're in the middle of the Angels Among Us section, and man, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Well, yeah, I told an author friend of mine right before an interview, or maybe it was right after. It's stressful. By the way, they're not an angel; they're married to one. But I told him that I was having to do something like 7,000 words for this thing, and I was trying to get it wrapped up like super fast. And he was like, man, and that's in addition to your regular work at the paper, right? I'm like, yeah, and then I've got a resource guide that I'm trying to do, and I've got Veterans Day stuff that I'm trying to collect and do. And he just he's like, man, you got too much. Yeah. But the Angels thing is something I enjoy doing. It's a project I believe in, and after speaking to a different angel, I've spoken to 3 in 2 days. I said, I just like shining the light on people who deserve to have it shown upon them.
Yeah.
Well, we spend too much time on stuff that
I was gonna say
isn't.
Negative.
Yeah.
There's so much. It's like people would love to consume that. I don't know if it's they love to or if the world's just full of that rather than opportunities like what you're doing with Angels Among Us to be able to just spread some love about people that are spreading love. So I see you voted.
Yes, I did.
I see your little sticker, the voting sticker.
Yes,
there.
I did. I took care of that. I took care of that on day 1.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting. I'll throw this out here. I was before the program, I wanted to get a sample ballot to see what was on the ballot, because there's a interesting, I want to call it a county ordinance change that's coming up. It would be a county ordinance.
It's an opt-out. It's an opt-out.
Okay. So some changes to what might be going on, or the law about what's going on here in Harvey County. We'll just call it that. And what I thought was interesting is that the Harvey County elections office posted something to their social media that said that they had 653 registered voters cast their ballot on the first day of early in-person voting, plus 7 provisional ballots. To their knowledge, that's the highest ever single-day early voting turnout. And there's some other numbers in there, but you can do that by just going and looking up on Facebook or Twitter, or they have the multiple different accounts, and see that post, because there's some more information there that, that's a lot of people getting out and voting.
It is, Tuesday morning was day 1. That's also when the county commission meets. And so when I got over to the courthouse, there was not any place to park. I mean, no place. Every lot was full. Every space was full. That usually means that there's something going on down in the commission room on a Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
But there wasn't nothing going on in the commission room on Tuesday morning. People were lined up out down the hall to vote.
And that's a good thing.
That is a great thing.
Yeah.
And that the saying that comes from our county clerk that I like is that, what's on the ballot drives elections.
Yeah.
And we got a heck of a ballot this time around. Yeah. And, obviously we've got a presidential election, and that's where so much attention is going to be. Yeah. And that's probably one of the biggest drivers of this whole thing.
We've talked about that on the program before. Yeah.
I was lucky and able to catch a lull during the commission meeting. They were doing some executive sessions, and I caught a lull in the line, so I went in and was able to vote. I voted a split ticket. I'll just be straight. I think I voted for every political party you can imagine in one way or another, including throwing a write-in on the ballot. But I want to be really clear that I did not write in a registered write-in candidate. Okay? I I wrote something in for another race. It might have been, I think it was in one of the judges or something. I was just like, but and
Chad wants
it's not
Mickey
a
Mouse to be a judge.
it wasn't an indictment on that particular judge or anything like that. It's just no. It was State Board of Education. Yeah, because things are kind of weird for the State Board of Education right now. So there was that, and I did find the. We'll call it the 30% rule on the back of my ballot, all the way at the bottom. That's where it's at, folks. And I was able to register my vote on that one too.
Well, and there's been some confusion about that. And I know that there's people that have messaged me and asked me, and I've sent them in one direction or another. But I finally had somebody say, hey, would you just cover this on the program? Give people a little bit of breakdown. I didn't give Chad really a heads up on this, but I just want to say this. This was in the Kansan. Just want to cover this real quick. That obviously, as we just said, voting has begun. You can do early voting between October 22nd and till November 4th.
Correct.
And that's the last time. Usually it's 8 to 5, but I think they have a flyer in there.
November 4th. It'll stop at noon.
Okay.
And yeah, it's 8 to 5 over at the courthouse. That they only have one early voting location.
Yeah.
Of course, if you've got yourself a mail ballot, you can drop that off at the drop anytime that you like.
Yeah.
You can also wait and mail it if you so desire.
And I got to send a shout out to the Harvey County Elections Office today, because I called, I looked at sample ballots. I was trying to find the information that I wanted, the specific wording that people are going to see about this 30%. So this is exactly what you'll see, folks. Sale of alcoholic liquor, vote yes or no. Shall the following be adopted? Shall sale of alcoholic liquor by the individual drink in Harvey County be allowed in public places without a requirement of any portion of their gross receipts be from sales of food? You're voting yes or you're voting no. A vote no means things stay the same. A vote yes means that changes.
Correct.
Okay. Now, people don't quite understand why they're having this. Plus, I know I've seen some signs around for Vote for Beer Freedom. I've had people ask me exactly what's the deal with that? Does it's only for a certain percentage of alcohol? I mean, there's been a lot of questions surrounding this.
Okay.
But it's ultimately liquor by the drink.
Yes.
That includes beer, or that includes, well,
alcohol.
Shot of whiskey, if that's what you want it to be.
Just alcohol.
Period.
Where this comes from is there was a change to our state constitution back in the early 80s.
86.
Thank you. And when that was created, the language was put into the Constitution that states that for you to sell liquor by the drink, 30% of your overall receipts must come from the sales of food.
To be in compliance.
There's a second clause right there which states that counties can opt out of that rule.
Okay.
And a lot of counties have done so.
Yeah. In fact, every county surrounding our county.
No.
Well, Reno, McPherson. I'm guessing Marion's the only one that has it?
Marion has not.
Okay.
Marion, I mean, I've looked at the maps, and so, yeah, it's not that every one of them has, but those that, sorry, Marion County, those that we spend our time in have.
Yeah. It's a revenue thing, I think.
Yeah. So the most recent kind of brouhaha, nice pun, right? Most recent brouhaha over this whole thing happened in Reno County. They ended up doing hot dog drives and selling dollar hot dogs out on the street so that they could boost their revenue from food sales above the 30% and keep their licensing. That they needed to do that in order to save their license.
Yeah.
And after that, or sort of in the aftermath of all of that, there was then the political movement began to opt that county out of the 30% rule.
Yeah.
And that was a successful effort. And that's what we're trying to do here. Okay. And so I've done some checking on this, and one of the first people I thought about was Grace Hill, because they are in Harvey County, just inside Harvey County, and I was wondering, what was the deal down there? Well, their all of their licensing and permitting is actually done through agricultural tourism, because they're a vineyard and they're growing their grapes.
Okay.
And
so a little different classification.
They have a little different classification, so they're not really getting hammered by this whole 30% thing. But if they had to do the 30%, you would see them doing probably events like they do on, every other Saturday or some such. They'd be doing that nonstop, because they'd have to be selling as much food as they possibly could.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying, or what is being tried, is to make things a little more fair, right? So right now, if you wanted to, and someone tried this, if you wanted to buy the old Kansan building in downtown and convert it into a brewery, right now you can do that.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to use the front half to put in a restaurant and sell food in order to get to the 30%, in order to preserve your liquor license.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so if people vote in such a way that rule goes away, now you can buy that building, which is apparently under contract again, but not for a brewery, and just open a brewery and be done with it. And so it's kind of what you want to,
So let's just say it this way. Another way to word it would be that if this passes, our county will, going into the future, will allow for there to be an alcohol-only sales establishment.
Yes. Now, so let me help out. I'm not going to be able to help out sort of those nerves of the hardline Christian right who is against anything alcohol. And folks, they do exist.
Oh, yeah.
But let me help out the conservatives who are trying to decide whether they want to support this or not. And I would say to you guys, what you're looking at is an opportunity to reduce regulations. This is a rule that was thrown in there at the state level that is governing at the local level.
Yeah.
So you can decide whether or not you're okay with that. All right? If you're not okay with there being this sort of regulation just being thrown down on the counties, then you need to vote accordingly to change it.
Yeah.
If you are okay with it, you then need to vote accordingly to not change it. So, that's kind of where that decision really hinges.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't disagree with you. I would say it takes it back to what I mentioned before in the past, that, these words get lost in the mix because, somebody who calls himself a conservative might not necessarily agree with the statement that you just made.
Of course, they probably don't.
And I know there is a group of people in this community that would espouse themselves to be conservative and want less government unless they want government to dictate onto others what they do and don't do. So there's that.
If the hang up is alcohol, then vote accordingly.
Yeah.
Seriously, if that's what it is. And you know what? I'm just going to say, take it from the dude who, I didn't grow up in Kansas. Yeah. So this is not the only state that I have known. Kansas, when it comes to alcohol, has been bass-ackwards forever. Come on.
Well, alcohol's the devil, right, Chad?
And
I didn't say that. I don't affirm to believe that.
Kansas was one of the leaders when it came to creating prohibition, and we all know how that worked out.
Well, and speaking of alcohol, and we'll take it back 7 years where I got into some hot water, or 6 years now. And it was that, and this was very confusing to a lot of people. And of course, there was a lot of shade thrown on me over the deal. But the city of Newton changed an ordinance to allow for Sunday alcohol sales.
Yes, they did. And that was a fight.
And that was a fight. Now there was many people that reached out to me, and the conversation was not so much about whether or not this would be allowed. They just didn't like the fact that the commission made this decision without input from the people. They'd like to vote on it. So I pretty much single-handedly went out and got all of the required signatures to protest the decision made so it would go on the ballot. Now, we all know how that worked out.
Yeah.
I think it was like a 70-30 pretty much.
Yeah.
So it passed. I want to say that I see the same thing happening here, but who knows, because now we're talking about all of Harvey County.
Right.
And not just the city of Newton. So
it's like, but again, well, and yes, we are talking about all of Harvey County, but where are half of our voters at?
More than half.
They're in Newton.
Right here in Newton.
It's cold hard truth, folks. That's just cold hard truth. The population, more than half our population for this county, sits right smack dab in Newton.
Yeah.
As Newton goes, so does the county.
Well, and then
it sucks.
Yeah.
Right? I spent some time working for the county, and I would say over and over again, I do not want my department to be Newton centric. I do not want my department. But at the end of the day,
that's where everybody
was at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and all counties are different. Just speaking to it, I mean, Harvey County is somewhat unique because we're very small square miles versus populous, and it's kind of interesting. I was talking to a former commissioner just this last week, and they had just over and over and over again touted different entities that were used as examples to the state. That we are movers and shakers in Kansas, whether people want to accept that or not. There's a lot that can be learned from Harvey County for many different reasons, including our electorate, and we can go. Speaking of this, I doubt that there was any vote for beer freedom signs that were stolen, but I noticed. I mean,
are we going to go to this one again?
I gotta say this. Okay, there was a post put out on Newton, Kansas community support by a Miss Schmidt. We'll just call her that because not to oust her or anything, but the quote is Newton, let's do better. There really is no need to steal political signs. So you aren't going to vote for a certain candidate. That's okay. Just don't vote for them, but don't steal things. This seems to happen every election, and I just don't get it. Leave your hands off other people's property. Rant over.
Let me just repeat part of that rant. It's my answer to all of this. This seems to happen every election.
Yeah.
Honey, it don't seem to happen every election.
Does.
It does happen every election.
Yeah.
Okay? And I am tired of political candidates calling me and complaining about it.
Yeah.
And it's every single election. Okay? So I've spoken to her. Now I'm going to spoke to the wiseacres who seem to think this is a good idea to go out and do. Let me tell you something. Ted Ice, God rest that man's soul. Ted Ice summed this up the absolute best while introducing a political forum. And this was more than a decade ago. And the reason I'm repeating him is it's a message that needed to be heard that day, and it's a message that needs to be heard.
And remembered.
It says more about your candidate. It says more about your confidence in your candidate than the one that you're removing.
Hey, I gotta say it. I gotta say, Chad, in you know me, my political prowess. If we want to call it that. Okay. I literally have made the decision to vote against, we'll say it, someone based upon how their people operate. So if I go out here, it's almost like I'll throw religion in there because everybody thinks that politics is religion and religion is politics nowadays.
And they're not.
But let's
don't let them mix.
But let's just say this, okay?
Our whole Constitution is written so that we're not supposed to do that.
But okay, so speaking of the mixture of politics and religion and everything, I really truly believe that people have allowed for their political preferences to trump their own faith, their own belief. We've got this cocktail of sorts that have become that, and you know, this is something that goes on at a national level all the way down. And I do find this interesting, though. I do find this interesting. How many people now have you heard being charged with a crime because they're out vandalizing and stealing people's property?
Very few.
That's right. That's right.
Very few.
Yep.
And
they're not going to even worry about it.
Public service announcement. When this kind of thing goes on, don't call the county clerk. Don't call Rick. I mean, seriously, just don't. His only concern when it comes to political signs is that they're not within 250 feet of a polling place. That's it. Anything else? Somebody stuck one in your yard and you didn't give them permission and you want to make a big deal out of it? Call the sheriff. Call the cops.
Well, I gotta say,
don't call Rick. I'm just saying.
I love this. I've had, you know, having been here, I laugh about it because I've had people tell me, you know, go place a sign in my yard. It's X, you know, address. Go place a sign in the yard. The people are like, hey, I didn't ask for a sign, and I'm like, whoa. And full disclosure here, this is the message that I got. Well, that's my address, but that's not me.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Let me pick it up. Thanks for not just throwing it away. I've got another person that wants me to place a sign. I've also had situations, Chad, where one member of the household tells me, you can put a sign in my yard. And then another person in the household doesn't necessarily agree. So you have a household divided, and then all of a sudden you're thrown in the mix of it. So I'll go back to this. Similar to, and then before we move on to something else here, but similar to my not choosing to vote for a specific candidate based upon the conduct of some of their most avid followers, same reason I won't go to certain churches. I'm sorry, but you know, if I see a common theme amongst church members that all say they go to this certain church, please, I'm not going to your church. Don't pray for me. Please don't pray for me, because whoever you're praying to, I do not want any involved in that, right? But anyway, okay. So next one would be, this seems to be a hot topic, or maybe not as hot a topic as I would assume it would be, but KSN put out that Evergy has announced they will build 2 705 megawatt high efficiency natural gas plants, the first power plants in Kansas since Wolf Creek went online in the 1980s. One's over by Hutch. It says, quote, from Evergy, there will be days where we rely on those fuel-free resources like wind and solar, other days where we'll need a plant that's ready to come online at a moment's notice. Now, do you think that's going to get the kind of attention that windmills have or solar energy has?
No, it's going to get some attention because we live in a NIMBY world. So it's going to get some attention. And the fact of the matter is we need energy.
You mean we need energy, Chad?
We need energy. I don't care where it comes from. We need energy. Okay?
No, not in this society.
And we're not living in Sim City.
Yeah.
Right? You can't
create it.
Yeah, you can't launch a satellite up into space and just magically create energy through a hyperlink to your sim.
You know what a
it
good
doesn't
way
work
is?
that way.
You know a good way is, you did say, launch something. I mean, the sun. If we can get energy from the sun, Chad.
I'm just saying.
No way.
We need energy.
No way. We want to pump out of the ground. Okay.
We need energy. Right. And so yeah, it's going to get attention because we're in an NIMBY world.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
I wrote a story. I was working. It was like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock last night is when I wrote this. And again, we live in a NIMBY world. We'll see if this gets any attention. Okay. Last night's city meeting was kind of boring, but there was a little news nugget in it. There's a new McDonald's coming. It's going to be built on the south side. At least that's the plans right now.
Interesting.
Okay. Our city commission last night authorized an expense about $116,000 expense for the extension of water mains and a water line in order for those lots to open up.
And where is this at exactly, Chad?
Well, I've always called it the Occidental spot.
Okay.
So we're talking south of Arby's, okay? And just so, interest of full disclosure, when I'm like reading going, and this is where the McDonald's is going to go, oh man, I hope it doesn't kill Arby's. So I'm in the...
Might give Arby's some business.
Not with the way all of our streets are set up down there.
Okay, I'm with you. Okay. Yeah, if it's easier access, yeah.
So we closed off what is that, Windward? Mm-hmm. And then we built a new Windward. But you can't turn in there anymore when you're coming from the south. You can't turn in there anymore. You got to go through the Walmart parking lot, or you got to use that south road and go through the 2 roundabouts and then back to the east in order to get to Arby's. Their business was off almost 25% because of that. And now we're going to add a fast food joint just to the south of them. So I'm kind of in that NIMBY camp. It's like, I don't really want that. But that's where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be on the northwest corner of Quail Creek Avenue, and that's south and the South Kansas Avenue intersection. Okay, and there is platted another street there, and we're not sure. I don't know. It at some point that street will get built. When they platted it and approved all that stuff, they put some triggers in. So at some point things will trigger and the city will be on the hook to build a road.
So another McDonald's is coming to the south side of Newton. Now, here's my thing, okay?
So, the NIMBYs can come out now. Let's get guys, come now.
Okay, I'll say this.
Come now, let's get it over with.
Yeah, and I'll say right, wrong, or indifferent, okay? This is what I do when I see economic development, all right? I look at it and I say, if McDonald's, a multi-billion-dollar company, decides they want to place a food establishment in a specific location, that says a lot about what their future projection of that area will be.
Oh, sure.
When Walmart goes in, or whatever the case may be, they don't just willy-nilly, all right?
You think it's an accident that People's Bank built in there?
No,
it's
absolutely not.
No,
it's not an accident, because that's where the growth is going. Now, there'll be people, I'm sure, a select small group of people that will have a problem with, growth. It seems like there really is in our community a group of people that are anti-growth, anti-economic development.
Well, and then there's also folks who get up in arms just over location, right? So, I'll give you one. I'll give you one thing right here, right? So you're talking about building a fast food restaurant. Well, why don't you put it out by the interstate? How many times have we heard that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've got a dead restaurant out by the interstate. Okay.
And multiple that have tried their hands out.
And we got a restaurant that is turned over and over and over and over and over and over the course of the last 10 years out by the interstate.
It's not convenient.
Okay. Why would they put it on South Kansas Avenue?
Well,
there's traffic there.
A lot of traffic. And Walmart, a lot of different companies follow Walmarts. If you notice, a Walmart goes into a certain location and there are other entities that will say, hey, that is prime real estate. Traffic is up. People are going to be coming and going there, and the likelihood of them stopping and getting something to eat or whatever the case may be.
And not only that, but we've got a hospital and a complete medical campus right there. So, yeah, there's traffic there, folks.
Yeah.
So why do you not put it by the interstate? Well, if you're putting it by the interstate, you're relying on, quite honestly, you're relying on people who were just not paying attention and stopping for gas in either McPherson or Wichita. I mean, straight up.
Yeah.
You want to know why Newell's Travel Plaza has been hurting so bad for the last decade? Okay, and it's very important that you understand I'm talking about the last decade, because it's not just about Quick Trip showing up.
Yeah.
This is long before Quick Trip showed up. Okay? We have the hardest on and off ramp for them that we could possibly have. So now we're trying to convince truckers to stop here when they could have stopped in Wichita. Or they could have stopped in McPherson.
Loves. That's an
Or they
easy
could have
access,
stopped in Heston.
Yeah.
Okay? Now Heston don't have showers, but man, they got diesel.
Yeah.
So we're trying to convince the trucker that they need to stop here. It ain't easy, folks. It's just not. So why don't we build the new McDonald's out by the interstate? Well, let's take a look at what's going on out by the interstate and how much success can we guarantee?
And I go back to this, Chad.
And yes, we have a Quick Trip now, but
Yeah. Yeah, okay, but I go back to this. These are multi-million, some cases billion-dollar companies. They don't go willy-nilly around with their money, okay?
Correct.
They do studies. They spend thousands and thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to come to some kind of a determination about whether it's profitable for them to put a specific business in a specific location. And if McDonald's is putting it there, then that says something about, well, that's almost like, if I would say that's like relying on their funding of their own entity to see what the future is going to look like in those places. So, okay. Another one. Okay, we talked about this before on the program, but I think this is kind of interesting because there is some newness here. State task force recommends cell phone ban in Kansas schools. All out ban. All out ban. Now, granted, school districts, a lot of them, now we talked in the past, okay, like I was saying, just to clarify, too much screen time for our youth is leading to some disastrous consequences in school. So I know by reading the comments and stuff on this that there are a lot of people that do not want for their child to be phoneless while at school. What's your thoughts on that, Chad?
Google Hillcrest Academy, Kelowna, Iowa. That's my thoughts. They are an example, and every school in the United States needs to follow them. Straight up.
You're just going to let it hang like that?
Well, with what they have experienced, I think, yeah. I mean, I'm telling people to Google it and take a look. They are a private school, okay? So they don't have the red tape of a state board of education on this one. They got to make their decision independently, and they made it. And they have grades. It's changed since I went there, but they have grades, I believe, 6 through 12. So we're talking middle school and high school. And students now check their cell phones in at the beginning of the day. They get them back at the end of the day.
Yeah, but Chad, what would happen?
They have created.
I'm with you. I
don't care about the what ifs.
Yeah.
They have created. That is the system that they created, and they created it all on their own. Okay, and it's everything. They have to. You check that sucker in. They have to be able to produce it for you when it's time to go home at the end of the day. Okay? And so they've created an entire infrastructure to make all of that plausible. Because every freaking student shows up with a cell phone. Okay? I fought and resisted getting my son a cell phone for as long as I possibly could. I delayed it as long as possible. Are there times it would have been handy for him to have one? Yeah. But was it what was best for him? No. And Hillcrest Academy's proven it. Grades are up. Discipline is down.
Well, there was even a article that I read about those entities in which have made the decision to enact a cell phone ban for their students, that it increases student-to-student peer engagement as well. Like, people are now having conversations.
They have to talk to each other.
Yes.
I'll tell
interpersonal relationship skills.
I'll tell a story. I'll tell a very personal story on this one. I've got 2 nephews. I don't feel like I know them at all. Not only because I don't see them often enough, but when I do see them, you know what they're doing? They're not talking to me. They're not talking to their cousin. They're here. Okay? That's not an indictment on those 2 young men.
Well, that's the nature of the beast right now.
That's an indictment on their generation. And so, yes, when you're in school, you need to be talking to the people around you.
Okay, so now I want to stop. Okay, you said an indictment on their generation, and I have a question because I've been really focusing in on this lately. Wouldn't that be an indictment on their parents' generation, Chad?
Sure.
I mean, honestly.
They're enabling it.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is then you go to, okay, personal story. There was a point in time when cell phones really started getting out. Social media was just happening. This was past the MySpace days into the Facebook days and et cetera, et cetera. And I just decided I don't even want a phone. I don't need a phone. And you would be amazed at the amount of people in my life that were like, well, what do you do if you break down? What happens if you get a flat tire? What happens? Fear. And it's like, wait a second. What did I do before cell phones? Where are we at here? Did we all forget what life was like before we had a constant? And now it's AI.
Oh yeah, but see those situations. Those are the situations where it's nice to have a phone. It's good to have a phone. But you know what? There's 23 hours and 55 other minutes in your day. There's 23 hours and 55 minutes.
Yeah.
Outside of that in your day. And my wife is another wonderful example. She fought against a smartphone for as long as she could. She wanted nothing to do with it. And I remember so well what she would say, because we would go get, we went so far as to start buying old phones on eBay until they were all obsolete and you couldn't do that anymore. Because this is her words, I want a phone. Only a phone.
Can't do it anymore.
Dude. This ain't a phone.
It's a computer. Yeah. Okay, and I just Googled something. All right. And of course, AI overview. Of course, Chad. The average amount of time adults spend on screen varies by location, age group, but here are some general statistics. In the United States, the average American spends 7 hours and 3 minutes on screens each day. This includes time spent on TV, computers, smartphones, and tablets. Globally, the average person spends 6 hours and 40 minutes on screens each day. Okay, I'm just going to say this, all right? If you have 8 hours for work, 8 hours for sleep, and 8 hours of your day remains, okay? Well, how much time are you spending with your family? How much time are you having a conversation person to person? And then we wonder... I'm just going to say it. Then we wonder why we're in the society that we are. And I'm just going to say a very angry, disconnected, impersonal, and as time goes on, the less that people actually have a conversation with one another. It's unbelievable. Okay.
So, here's the age-old question. How many friends do you have?
Depends on whether we're talking about social media or whether we're talking about in person.
And I don't want you to have to check Facebook to tell me the number of friends you have, because that's not a friend. That's an acquaintance.
But it says they're my friend on Facebook, Chad.
That's an acquaintance.
And even then, how much time do you actually spend with those individuals? Because you're reading a projection that somebody wants to project onto the rest of the world about themselves. Doesn't mean
it doesn't mean that there aren't some really good tools out there that you can use. But I mean, this whole thing started with banning cell phones in school. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'll be the cranky old man in the corner. I'm all for it. Well, I'm all for it.
They have policies here in Newton. I know they have policies at the high school that require that you're not supposed to have your cell phone on.
Straight up, I know beyond all shadow of a doubt that Fred Van Rankin, the superintendent of schools for Newton, has been reading about Hillcrest Academy. He can't have half a dozen people go to him and say, you need to look at this, and him not to. Okay? Because there's quite a few grads in our school district from Hillcrest Academy. There's a lot of us idiots out wandering aimlessly in Newton, Kansas. We're here. It's the way it is. And we've been telling him about it. And he's not the only superintendent that I've talked to personally about it. And I've had superintendents look at me like, oh man, I wish we could do that. Why can't you? They've given you the example of how to make it work. It's right there. And some of those are from some small school districts. I'm like, and so that solution that they've given, it is custom built. It is built for you, guy.
Well, and I tell you that, going back to an interview I did with Brian Skinner, who was Teacher of the Year, his project that he talked about was how damaging social media is. And I'm going to extend that, he has to be specific, but how bad screen time is and how we engage with screen time and what type of interpersonal relationship skills there are, et cetera, et cetera. So,
well, and just for those folks that are gonna, disparage my whole attitude on this, I there's one thing that I really need to get said, okay? That you may have given your kid a cell phone and a smartphone. I did too. It's all I could buy, really. And, that I gave him one that I have a ridiculous amount of control over. Okay? It requires administrative codes, passwords to download, just to download an app. It requires my permission to install an app. It monitors everything he does, including every text he sends. So when he's texting a girl at 5 o'clock in the morning, I know it.
Dang, Chad. Laying the hammer down.
Okay.
That should be a crime, Chad. You can't invade your child's privacy like that. Don't they have rights?
Nope.
I can just hear this now.
Nope.
I can hear this now. When the conversations start flying about how my child has a right to have their cell phone at school.
Your child has the rights that you give them.
Yeah.
Okay? Straight up. So, I've got all that control. And there is one thing that he knows to not even bother ask for. And that's any social media app. Ugh. It ain't happening.
How is he going to have friends, Chad?
He's got plenty of friends. My daughter's complaining about how popular my son is because she's not as popular as my son. Okay? He's got plenty of friends.
Yeah.
And he makes those friends because he talks to people. And he doesn't have the crutch of social media, which also means that he is not subject to the social media bullying that goes on that no one can control.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Oh, and it's everywhere.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's everywhere. Especially during political
season. So
season.
if you insist that your son or daughter or your child needs to have a phone, okay, make absolutely sure that you keep them off of social media. I'm just straight up serious.
What, so fake people with fake names can't just come out and spew their hatred and discontent all over everybody without any accountability?
How many times? Okay, and I'll say it to you. I'll say it to the adults in the room. How many times do you read Facebook and get really angry about what's there?
It's designed to be
that way. Do you want
way.
your kids to have to go through that?
Yeah, and then if you read it, just think about this. If you spend the time to read it and it's making you frustrated, guess what's going to happen? AI and algorithms are going to turn that back around. It's going to know that you rested there and you read it, and so then it's going to want to put more of that information in front of you. So then what made you mad is now going to make you mad 7 times over because, well, you've already been captured by it. So moving on, I want to say something positive.
One more thing.
Go ahead, Chad.
I'm sure one of those protests that will come, if we come for their cell phones, is that, well, now my kid can't call 911 if there's a school shooter. Folks, can we rely a little bit on some local experience here? Straight up. 911 got buried during the XL shooting. Absolutely buried. You think somebody walks into the Newton High School with a weapon and 2,000 calls at once isn't going to bury our 911 system?
It'll shut the system down.
Okay.
I mean, it very well can.
Straight up. I'm not going to say that won't happen in Newton, Kansas, because it's proven that it very well could. What I'm saying is that if it does happen in Newton, Kansas, can we have a little faith that our principals will take care of it and make that call? That's who needs to make the call. 911 doesn't need to hear from your kids about that. The call has been made.
They should be more worried about doing what they need to do for their own safety.
Your kid can call you.
Yeah.
But straight up, what are you going to do in that situation? Because you dang well better stay out of that building, or you'll be a victim.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right. And on a positive note, we were talking about Harvey County being trailblazers, the city of Newton even more. I want to send a shout out to, if I'm saying this right, Trinice Robertson, because she was honored as one of the Wichita Business Journal's women who lead in human resources. This program recognizes high-performing women in HR in the Wichita area. Profiles of the honorees will be featured in the Business Journal's November 1st edition. So, if you want to read about a rock star that we have right here in our own community, right, that's been working here for going on almost 2 years now, right? Or no, almost a year. My apology. She also has 17 years of public service to cities in Kansas and Texas. So you want to read about a rock star that we have that's being featured in something, well, I mean, the largest metropolitan area in the state of Kansas? Check out the Biz Journal on November 1st.
Sure.
So now,
you want to hear about another rock star?
Yes, I do, Chad.
Pick up your Thursday paper.
What do you got?
I've got Lisa Golubski. And by the way, she may or may not, I don't know yet, end up being an angel among us for this one too. Right? So 4-H of Kansas has more than 5,000 volunteers. And she is the one who has been given a Outstanding Lifetime Volunteer Award this year. Let me say that again. There's more than 5,000 people that they could have picked. She's the one they did.
Right here in Harvey County. And that's on this Thursday paper in the Newton, Kansas. So you can definitely get it.
I'll tell you what, that's a fun story to write.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning. What's wrong with pro-positive, and what's wrong with highlighting the wonderful things that people do in our community? What's wrong with...
She's been at it a real long time. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Now, let's go back and forth here, Chad, because I got some new stuff I want to... Just quick blips, right?
Quick? Okay.
This Saturday, Harvey County Sheriff's Office posted on their social media, is National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day. It's this Saturday. Bring any medications by that you no longer need or will use. And I just want to say this. I'm sure that DFY or Defy would love a little shout out too, because they know and have talked about in many instances controlling these substances that were prescribed to you from a doctor, that either you didn't need to take all of them or whatever the case may be, that are just lying around your house.
Oh yeah, you got opioids in your cabinet, folks.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, all right, if we're trying to eliminate access to choices that could be lifelong mistakes, then that's an area we need to look. You know, it just is. Friends come over. I mean, kids don't use that lump 3 foot above their, what we talked about last week, all the time. In fact, I will say this. I'll be personal, Chad. The first time that I ever in my life engaged in taking something that I should not have been taking when I was just barely 13 years old was a prescription that I was prescribed that did not get the whole thing taken through. And my friend says, "Hey, didn't know you have these."
Doesn't have to be a prescription either.
Nope. Keep your medicine locked up, especially if, we all want to believe that little Johnny or little Susie wouldn't make negative choices that we see as something that could be detrimental to their future. But kids do make mistakes.
Hey, there's a reason that there's a number of so-called over-the-counter medications have been moved behind the counters.
So make sure and watch out. Make sure and watch out that it doesn't get in the hands.
I wrote a story several years ago about a kid that pretty much destroyed his life. His life was over by the time he was 18, and it was all over cough syrup and yeah.
They're just kids.
Over the counter meds.
They're just kids.
I was working that story. I walked into Dollar Tree, and right there on the end cap was the stuff that he was taking.
I'll say this. Who would leave a loaded gun laying out on the kitchen table for any of their adolescent youth in their home to just have access to when no one's around? Now, if the child understands, hey, that's a loaded firearm and that's dangerous, and I could pick this up and things could go wrong, all right? How is that not any different with their medicine cabinet, Chad?
Yeah, it's not any different with their medicine cabinet.
So look at it that way, folks. Consider that. Consider it that way.
You're reminding me I need to put a lock on my medicine cabinet.
Keep them locked up. Because you never know. You can't watch 100% of the time. Peer pressure is a mother. I guarantee you that there is a statistic out there that says that somewhere upwards of 50% of people who become addicted to a substance are first prescribed that substance from a doctor. And then not only that, but think about every family member you have, then their friends, people being in your house, going into a bathroom where many people keep their drugs, if you want to call it that, their prescriptions, and the privacy that's afforded those youth at that point in time could very well turn into sneaking into the cabinet, not knowing the full consequences of their choices. Nobody wants to believe that that's the case. It's a loaded gun. Keep it locked up. Chad, what do you got for us?
What do I got?
Yeah.
Newton Med is going to have a party this week. NMC Health. So at the time of this recording, it's tomorrow. They're going to be lifting the last beam into place for their big expansion project of their ER. And I don't think people get it when I say this is a big deal, because I really think people take NMC for granted.
Yeah.
And I don't think they have a full comprehension of how important that is to this community, and not just us, a lot of communities. So they're going to be lifting that beam into place, and they're having a ceremony at like 4 o'clock on Thursday. So I'm planning to be there, which is kind of cool. Super cool.
So you'll be writing it. You wrote an article, but you're also going to be writing an after article, Chad.
Yeah, I wrote a pre-article. I'm going to be writing a post.
Nice.
And I've got a photographer who's going to take some wonderful pictures.
Good.
Because, Michelle is incredibly talented.
And that's some stuff that we want. We want the rest of the world to know what we got right here, and it's a nugget. We talk about rural hospitals. We talk about the need for rural hospitals. I believe NMC is considered a rural hospital. I've watched them grow over time. You can go into different communities and you can see NMC clinics. Val Gleason and that team and everybody that is there is great. I know I've encouraged people to go to the birthing center there because we have a top-notch birthing center. We just really have about everything that a person could need or want, which provides top quality service. And even then, it's the home of Health Ministries Clinic too out there. So,
yes.
We've got a wonderful
a
place. Yeah, it's a campus. And I believe under the leadership of Miss Gleason, along with those others that even those that are on the board, we're moving in the right direction. Okay, so I got one, Chad. Speaking of things that are coming up, I wanted to get ahead of this a little bit. But on November 5th, the Lions Club will host their annual Pancake Feed. There is a location change. It used to be at the Newton Rec Center, so if you try to show up there for what is a every year deal on Election Day where they feed the community pancakes and sausage and serve in that way, that it's at Our Lady of Guadalupe Church. So Our Lady of Guadalupe is 421 South Ash. You can go in there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Election Day for all you can eat pancakes, scrambled egg, sausage, juice, and coffee. You don't need any tickets. All you need to do is show up and provide a donation. So I don't even think that, they charge you. It says right there it's a donation. So go give them some love and make sure that you get out to the Lions Club because that's a big fundraiser for them. And, they always give back to the community.
And that should be the second thing that you do on Election Day. And it should be the second thing that you do at Our Lady of Guadalupe in just a couple of days. Because on November 2nd, the Los Muertos is going to be at Our Lady from 11 to 6. And that's a really cool thing. I think this is the third annual celebration. And I'm hopeful that I can make it out there. Because if I do, that means I will have made it to every single one of them that has happened. Sometimes it's like only 5 minutes, but I still was able to get there. But yeah, there's lots going on in this town, man. And of course, we've got Halloween coming up, and it feels like everybody's going to try and have a trunk or treat this year. So.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that was going to be my last word. I got one more shout out I want to do. Prairie View. Save the date for Prairie View's 71st anniversary gala and auction. Keep an eye out for tickets, which will be available December 19th, 2024. They said that we can't wait to continue this journey with you. See you at the gala. Now, this will be at Wild Prairie Event Center, the gala, which is at 1610 Southeast 3rd Street in Newton. Remember, this is not the date. December 19th is not the date of the event. It's just when tickets go on sale.
Okay.
So what else you got for us, Chad? We're getting close to the end of the program to get a last word, but go ahead. What do you got?
Let me head off some social media posts at the pass.
Okay.
Because I get them. We see these every year. The Halloween Safe Walk by the Newton Lions Club, 5:30 to 7:30 on Halloween.
Huh.
It's downtown, and it's and they have this thing on the 31st pretty much every year, and every year I see these posts. When is it? It's October 31st.
Right. Every year it's on October 31st. Every year
it's been that way for a couple years. just saying. I mean, it's not like the candy scramble over at the Newton Rec Commission that moves around on the calendar now and then.
Next question. We know the date. So where is it at? Chad?
Downtown.
Oh.
Downtown. Right in front of my office.
Where's the Halloween walk on downtown?
I can't seem to get any expenditures approved to buy a whole crap load of candy to give to kids, but doggone it, that's where it's going to be.
Right. So, all right. So I'm going to do the last word first, but it's really not a last word this week. But just what Chad was saying, to piggyback off what Chad was saying, if you go to Choose Newton's social media page, they put out a Halloween events and activities calendar, and it goes from the 22nd to the 31st. So we're already in it. All right, anything from Craft-O-Ween at 10 a.m. Newton Rec Center, Trunk or Treat at Paramount Community Center the 25th at 4:30, Family Fall Crafts, Costume Party, Halloween Cruise, Trunk or Treat, Trunk or Treat, Trunk or Treat, and more Trunk or Treats. So, I mean, for time, there's no way that I can get it all in. Go to Choose Newton social media page, look at their Halloween events and activities. There's a whole list from the 22nd to the 31st, and you can see all events and event details at choosenewton.com/events as well. Get out and enjoy the cooler weather. We actually have a fall this year. The leaves are changing. We have warm days and cool nights. Just enjoy the family and time and the activities, and just go to a pumpkin patch too. Chad, what's your final word?
My final word right now, after listening to that, don't feel like you got to do everything, and understand. I understand.
Just cut me off at the knees.
But here's the deal, man. You have the opportunity to collect more sugar for your kids than they should ever consume.
Dentists are loving it. We should say, this has been sponsored by Dental Clinic X, Y,
Crest.
or Z. Or B.
Yeah. Woo.
All right.
It's a fun time of year. And Halloween kicks off an incredibly fun time of year, because we've got Thanksgiving and Christmas and all kinds of stuff throughout those seasons, and then we roll into the Super Bowl, so we have got a fun time of year coming up.
Yeah. As I heard somebody say the other day, it's the season of gluttony.
That'd be me.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to the program. We couldn't do this without you. I appreciate all the engagement, everything that I've been sent messages, and it seems like every day, every week, more and more people are just coming on. They're engaging with us. They're telling us about things that are going on. We couldn't be more happy and more thankful that all of you that support us throughout the community. And we'll always take a comment, or a comment, or a share.
We might challenge the lie.